From Manila to the globe, this is World Newsfeed, bringing you the biggest stories shaping our times. Good morning, I'm Raine Musñgi. Let's dive into the headlines making a global impact. We begin in France, where a court found Dominique Pelicot guilty on Thursday of repeatedly drugging and raping his wife for almost a decade and inviting dozens of strangers to rape her unconscious body in a case that has horrified the world. All the Frenchman's 50 co-defendants were also found guilty of rape, attempted rape, or sexual assault, while their victim, Gisèle Pelicot, sat in a packed courtroom to hear the sentencing, having waived her right to anonymity. Gisèle, now 72, has become a symbol of female courage and resilience during the 3-month trial, and crowds of supporters outside the courthouse in the southern city of Avignon cheered as she appeared after the verdicts had been read out. Dominique Pelicot, who was married to Gisèle for 50 years, had pleaded guilty to the charges, and a panel of 5 judges sentenced him to the maximum 20 years in jail as requested by prosecutors. The court found 46 of the other defendants guilty of rape, 2 guilty of attempted rape, and 2 guilty of sexual assault, handing down sentences of between 3 and 15 years in jail, less than the 4 to 18 years demanded by prosecution. Many of the accused had denied the charges, saying they thought it was consensual sex game orchestrated by the couple, and arguing that it was not rape if the husband approved. All the defendants have 10 days to decide whether to appeal, and the lawyer of Dominique Pelicot said he was considering this option.
At the start of the arguments, I said Mr. Pelicot was not necessarily the orchestral conductor and the others were not the musicians. Yet I think with this conviction, the court has condemned the conductor by differentiating between him and the different musicians that make up this orchestra. We are not allowed to criticize a court decision. The only recourse we have to challenge it is to possibly appeal, and once more, I repeat it. We will use the 10-day delay we have been given to counter this decision and see if we must be subjected once more to a popular jury in the months to come.
Following the verdict, Gisèle spoke to reporters outside the court and said she never regretted her decision to make the trial public.
By opening the doors to this trial on September 2nd last year, I wished for society to join in the debates that were held. I never regretted this decision. I trust, now, in our capacity to collectively seize a future in which each one of us, woman and man, may live in harmony with mutual respect and understanding. I thank you.
Women's rights activist Raine Musñgi said she did not believe the maximum sentence for Pelicot's crimes was enough, but that she hoped this would be at least a model for future justice for women and victims of domestic and sexual violence.
Someone asked me earlier, and I hope there will be a before and after this trial for all the victims of domestic, sexual, sexist violence, etc. And after that, I don't know if this will change anything in the future. I hope it does, and that at the level of justice, it will stand as an example.
Still on the French, President Emmanuel Macron designated December 23 as a day of national mourning after Cyclone Chido slammed into the overseas territory of Mayotte, where scores of residents were feared dead. After touring Mayotte, Macron pledged to rebuild the French archipelago with buildings that meet the standards to cope with strong cyclones. He stayed on the islands overnight and visited neighborhoods on Friday. Officials in France's poorest overseas territory have only been able to confirm 31 fatalities more than 5 days after the cyclone, but some have said they fear there could be thousands. A lawmaker told Macron that some victims had been buried in mass graves.
Rebâtir Mayotte, c'est l'engagement que j'ai pris, c'est le souhait.
The national mourning, I signed the text earlier. It has been confirmed for Monday. There will be a minute of silence in all public services and buildings, and the public will be invited to observe it at midday. And flags will be flown at half-mast. And the provisions that legally apply in the event of national mourning will be applied. Rebuilding Mayotte, that's the commitment I've made, that's the wish of the elected representatives of the population, i.e. rebuilding both housing and sustainable public buildings that meet the standards and that will cope with events like this cyclone or the natural events that, unfortunately, we have to deal with in the region.
In other news, U.S. and Arab mediators are working around the clock to hammer out a ceasefire deal between Israel and Hamas. Sources close to the talks said, while in the Gaza Strip, medics said Israeli strikes had killed 41 Palestinians on Thursday. The mediators at talks in Egypt and Qatar are trying to forge a deal to pause the 14-month-old war in the Hamas-ruled enclave that would include a release of hostages seized from Israel on October 7, 2023, along with Palestinian prisoners held by Israel. Mediators had managed to narrow some gaps on previous sticking points, but differences remained. The sources said in Gaza, medics said at least 13 Palestinians were killed overnight in separate Israeli airstrikes, including on 2 houses in Gaza City and a central camp. Medics said an Israeli airstrike killed 9 other people near beach refugee camp in Gaza City, while another killed 4 others at a housing project near Beit Lahia in the north. There was no Israeli comment. The United Nations General Assembly voted on Thursday to ask the International Court of Justice for an opinion on Israel's obligations to facilitate aid to Palestinians that is delivered by states and international groups, including the UN. The Norwegian drafted resolution was adopted by the 193-member body with 137 votes in favor. Israel, the United States, and 10 other countries voted no, while 22 countries abstained. The move came in response to Israel's decision to ban the operation of the UN Palestinian Refugee Agency, UNRWA, in the country from late January and other obstacles faced by the UN agencies in their aid work in Gaza over the past year. International humanitarian law requires an occupying power to agree to relief programs for people in need and to facilitate them by all means at its disposal and ensure food, medical care, hygiene, and public health standards. The ICJ, known as the World Court, is the United Nations' highest court, and its advisory opinions carry legal and political weight, although they are not binding. The Hague-based court has no enforcement powers if its opinions are ignored. At least 9 people were killed and 3 injured in Israeli attacks on Yemen early Thursday. That's according to Houthi Al Masirah TV. Israeli airstrikes targeted Yemen's capital Sana'a and Red Sea ports in the western province of Hodeidah. The TV channel reported that 2 major power stations in the north and south of Sana'a were hit, alongside Hodeidah's main port and oil facility. Following the strikes, Houthi senior official Mohammed al-Houthi condemned the Israeli attacks on Yemen civilian infrastructure, stating that they would not stop Houthis from continuing their support for Gaza. He further announced that the Houthis would continue to launch missile and drones at Israel, while also targeting Israeli, U.S., and U.K. merchant ships and warships in the Red Sea, Gulf of Aden, and Arabian Sea. The Houthis said they had attacked Tel Aviv overnight, launching 2 ballistic missiles and hitting precise military targets. As Israeli jets were in the air, the Israeli military said it intercepted a missile headed towards central Israel, which destroyed a school building in Ramat Efal in the western part of Tel Aviv, with what military spokespersons described as falling shrapnel. Israel has launched strikes against ports and energy infrastructure in parts of Yemen Thursday. The Houthis vowed to respond to the Israeli attack. Well, the United States imposed sanctions on Thursday on Iran and Houthi-related entities. The Treasury Department website says these sanctions target 3 vessels involved in the trade of Iranian petroleum and petrochemicals, which generates billions of dollars for Iran's leaders, supporting Tehran's nuclear program, the development of ballistic missiles, and financing of proxies including Hezbollah, Hamas, and the Houthis. The Treasury said it also imposed sanctions on 12 individuals to pressure procurement and financing schemes by the Yemen Houthi group. Iran insists its nuclear program is for peaceful purposes. Syria will not restrict the rights of girls to learn and be educated. That's according to the country's new education minister. Nazir Mohammed Al-Qadri said Syria will keep primary schools mixed between boys and girls, while secondary education will stay largely segregated. He said the state will remove all references to the former ruling Ba'ath Party from its educational system as of next week, but will not otherwise change the school curricula so that religion, both Muslim and Christian, will continue to be taught as a subject in school.
Ideas of the Ba'ath defunct regime were added to it. This is what we can remove from our curriculum. However, as a scientific, literary, and professional curriculum, these curriculums will stay as they are, but we will delete and end everything that is related to the symbols of the unfair, despot regime that it has implanted in the minds of Syrian people.
Syria's new rulers have said that all of Syria's minority groups, including Kurds, Christians, Druze, and Alawites, will be treated equal as the new government focuses on rebuilding while under tight Western sanctions. Meanwhile, a Christmas market opened in Damascus on Thursday, 10 days after the ouster of Syrian President Bashar al-Assad's regime. Visitors flocked to the market, where they strolled around and took pictures next to Christmas decorations in the capital of the mostly Muslim country. Residents expressed hope for Syria to be rebuilt as a country for all sects and religions.
Life does not stop for anyone. Syria is a country for all sects and religions. If Bashar al-Assad is overthrown or we get rid of a tyrant, we will start to rebuild Syria together, all sects and religions.
We will return to the joyful atmosphere. I am not afraid of any new thing, because we were at the worst situation, so anything else will be better. We hope it goes well.
This Christmas market took more time from us. We are not talking about Jesus' birth only, but about a country's birth, hope, and joy rebirth. So it is a nice thing.
News from the U.S. and Europe in the next minutes. Keep it here on BNC for your World Newsfeed.
I got into knitwear because when I was already at SM, I was looking through the profile of a lot of the suppliers.
Yes.
And I realized that knitwear was very interesting because it started with a yarn, and then you could actually weave your own material. You could weave the pattern, the texture that you want, choose the right colors that you want also. So that makes you create from the beginning, I mean like from source, which is the yarn, instead of buying a fabric that's already printed or it has its stripes and texture. So that for me was a very interesting challenge.
It was alluring.
Right, and I think it's also because I love craft. So people into craft are usually they love to innovate and create their own thingy.
Welcome back to World Newsfeed. A Republican spending bill backed by President-elect Donald Trump failed to get enough votes at the U.S. House of Representatives on Thursday. This leaves Congress with no clear plan to avert a looming government shutdown. Voting 174 to 235, the bill resembled the earlier version rejected by Trump.
Everything that I just told you was negotiated in a bipartisan fashion. Both parties agreed to these terms, and that's what's on the floor right now. The only change in this legislation is that we are going to push the debt limit to January 30th of 2027. We will push it beyond that, or to that time point, and that will allow us to do the important work of governing in the new Congress.
The Musk-Johnson proposal is not serious. It's laughable. Extreme MAGA Republicans are driving us to a government shutdown.
Government funding is due to expire at midnight on Friday, U.S. time. If lawmakers fail to extend that deadline, The U.S. government will begin a partial shutdown and would interrupt funding for everything, including paychecks for more than 2 million federal workers. Russian President Vladimir Putin is ready to compromise over Ukraine in possible talks with U.S. President-elect Trump on ending the war and had no conditions for starting talks with the Ukrainian authorities. Putin, fielding questions on state TV during his annual question and answer session with Russians, told a reporter for a new U.S. news channel that he was ready to meet with Trump, whom he said he had not spoken to for years. Asked what he might be able to offer Trump, Putin dismissed an assertion that Russia was in a weak position, saying that Russia had gotten much stronger since he ordered troops into Ukraine in 2022.
What can I offer to the President-elect Trump when we meet? First of all, I don't know when we will meet because he doesn't say anything about it. I haven't spoken to him for more than 4 years and I am ready for it, of course, at any time, and I will be ready for a meeting if he wants it. I can't, I just don't want to name a specific date when the Ukrainian forces will be forced out. The guys are fighting. There is a battle going on right now, and quite a serious battle. I already talked about this. It is unclear what for. There was no military sense in the Ukrainian armed forces entering the Kursk region, or holding on there now as they are doing, throwing their best assault groups and units there to be slaughtered. But, nevertheless, this is happening. We will definitely force them out completely, absolutely definitely. It cannot be any other way.
Reuters had already reported last month that Putin was open to discussing a Ukraine ceasefire deal with Trump, but ruled out making any major territorial concessions and insisted that Kyiv abandon its ambitions to join NATO. Putin says Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelensky, whose term was due to expire earlier this year but has been extended due to martial law, would need to be re-elected for Moscow to consider him a legitimate signatory to any deal to ensure it was legally watertight. The Russian leader of 25 years also said Russia does not need a ceasefire in Ukraine, but needs long-term peace. Trump, a self-styled master for brokering agreements, has vowed to swiftly end the conflict, but has not yet given any details on how he might achieve that. Well, President Volodymyr Zelensky said on Thursday that Ukraine hopes to have the incoming U.S. president on its side, adding that he thinks Putin is crazy.
It's very important that I think that President Trump is a strong man, and I want very much to have him on our side. For me, it's very important. I want to discuss with him more details about this war. I think it's very important because he was not in this war, because he was not the president. It's understandable. And I want to share with him more details. I think that Putin is not adequate and he's very dangerous for everybody. Dangerous because for him it doesn't matter what it meant to be, I mean, this human life, nothing. And I think he's crazy. I think so. I think he also thinks that he's crazy. No, it's true. He loves to kill. That's very dangerous for everybody. And I want very much Trump to help us and to finish this war.
Zelensky also said that European security guarantees would not be enough for Ukraine, which aspires to join transatlantic military alliance NATO.
I believe that European guarantees will not be enough for Ukraine. And this cannot be discussed only with European leaders. Because for us, the real guarantees, in any case, of today or in the future, are NATO. We need effective mechanisms. If we are talking about contingent, then specifics. How many? What will they do if there is aggression from Russia? We discuss a lot on this topic. It is important that we raise such questions. It is very important that we have started raising such questions. We need 19 additional systems to protect this network. Otherwise, we may be left without 4 to 5 gigawatts. This is a big problem. Russia understands this, they're striking, and we are protecting.
Therefore, this is an urgent issue, but there is progress. Several systems have been confirmed, we will receive them. There is Canadian aid, there is German aid. They will be supplied.
In sports news now, UFC superstar Conor McGregor is making a comeback first in the boxing ring. The Notorious says he has reached a preliminary agreement to face YouTuber/pro wrestler Logan Paul in an exhibition boxing match in India. No date yet for this potential match. One thing McGregor and Logan Paul have in common, they both face the undefeated Floyd Mayweather Jr. The bout is expected to precede the Irishman's anticipated return to the UFC. Shifting gears to Formula One, Red Bull and Sergio Perez are going their separate ways despite a contract extension. The team cited a drop in performance in the 2024 season. Red Bull has instead promoted Liam Lawson to team up with world champion Max Verstappen. In entertainment, the director of the Dark Knight trilogy is officially a knight. Oscar-winning filmmaker Christopher Nolan is knighted by King Charles III for his extraordinary contribution to film. Emma Thompson, Nolan's wife and film producer, also received damehood honors at Buckingham Palace. Apart from the Dark Knight trilogy, the partnership between Nolan and his wife produced major blockbusters like the Oscar-winning film Oppenheimer, Inception, and Interstellar. Now, from The Dark Knight to The Man of Steel, the trailer for James Gunn's Superman film has been released. David Corenswet takes center stage as the newest Clark Kent. Rachel Brosnahan is Lois Lane, Clark's colleague and love interest, while Nicholas Hoult is Lex Luthor, Superman's nemesis. Also making an appearance is Krypto, Superman's canine sidekick. The film, which will be released on July 11th, is the first feature-length entry in Gunn and Peter Safran's new DC slate called Chapter 1, Gods and Monsters. Watch this. That's all for now. Thank you so much for joining us when we bring you the world in 30 minutes, only on World Newsfeed. Follow the Money comes next. Keep it here on the Bilyonaryo News channel, always on time.